Welcome to today's edition of the Rush 24/7 podcast.
All right, let me lead off by telling you this Corker stuff doesn't matter. It's good theater. What? It doesn't matter. How do you think it matters? What do you think? No, folks, I'm serious here. I'm using intelligence guided by experience. This is a repeat process of something that's been happening ever since Trump was inaugurated. Hell, ever since Trump announced his candidacy. There's a pattern here. Greetings, great to have you, Rush Limbaugh, your guiding light, America's real anchorman, soothing and calming a chaotic nation with dulcet tones, rhetoric, and resonance spreading coast to coast via the golden EIB microphone here at the Limbaugh Institute for Advanced Conservative and Anti-Media, Anti-Leftist Studies. Telephone number. Snurdly says, you got through that without stuttering. I don't stutter. Sometimes I speak faster. Well, I think faster than my mouth can keep up, but I don't stutter. Telephone number 800-282-2882 if you want to be on the program. All right. Folks, there's a pattern here. This endless torrent of news. And it isn't news. There isn't any news. In fact, the news is not being reported. And because of that, a lot of things good are happening and are sneaking by underneath the drive-by media radar. So here's the pattern. An endless torrent of news that we have been deluged with since the coming of Trump. And it's just repetitive as it can be. Only the minor details change. The general outline is almost always the same. Trump has said or done something outrageous, or somebody says something critical of Trump, and Trump responds to it, which is then characterized as deranged, unfocused, outrageous, and his supporters and the GOP in the country will never recover from it. Every incident, we are told this is it. Every incident, Trump's done it now. Trump has stepped over the line this time. I mean, every time they tell us this, I don't know how many lines they've drawn, but Trump has stepped over all of them. And in the process of stepping over all these lines, he was supposed to have been destroyed after stepping over each one. Trump has self-destructed so many times here that there actually is a lesson in self-preservation. But the pattern, it just never stops. Somehow, everybody recovers. Somehow, life goes on. Somehow the chaos continues, the angst continues, but the cycle repeats itself over and over again. And each time the event happens, there are people on both sides who think this is it, this is the worst, it's over, Trump has really stepped in it this time, or the left has stepped in it, or something, and yet everything just keeps going. Now, as you know, I tend to see things optimistically. There are times it takes an effort. It requires an effort to do that. But in a way, maybe, just maybe, and I know there's some people who disagree with me on this. Look, I know some people that love Trump from the get-go, and they supported Trump from the get-go, and they still do, but they're disheartened. And you know why? Because they want everybody to think of Trump the way they do. And they thought it was going to be possible. I know maybe 3 people who are not down on Trump in a direct way, but they were thinking that all of this would have died down by now and that the country would have become unified. And what always happens, we give our presidents a chance. And that isn't happening. And I try to tell these people, you're living an illusion if you think that the country unifies or the media and the left unify, particularly around a Republican president, and give the guy a chance. It just doesn't happen. It never has happened. But there are a lot of people that had so much hope that Trump was going to be able to come in. And you know what their hope, you know where it resides? It resides in reality that Trump's agenda is exactly what America needs. That Trump's agenda needs to move, including tax cuts for everybody, but everything in the Trump agenda needs to move forward. And these people that I'm referring to have I guess it's a hope more than a belief, but that once that agenda is enacted and that the circumstances and situations in the country do continue to demonstrably improve, that all of the criticism and chaos and destruction will end. And I've had to tell them, you're pipe dreaming. That's never. The more successful Trump is, the more insane his opposition is going to be. They're never going to come around anything here. But if you're using, I'll just tell you this to everybody. If you are hoping for normalcy, however you define it, like, do you think the Bush 8 years were normal? Well, maybe you think the first 4 years, but how about you think they were normal compared to this? Okay, were the 8 years of Clinton normal? I don't, when I say normal, I mean you got up, you went about your day, whatever was happening in Washington, you knew it was there, and you maybe got irritated at some of it, and it kept you engaged and all that. But my point, when have we ever had what you think is normal? A lot of people define normal as no fighting, no disagreeing, normal as people getting along. Those days, I don't remember them. I don't remember those days. So this quest for normalcy, I understand it, and I understand the desire that people, particularly the opposition to Trump, just wear themselves out. You know, just finally wake up one day and they don't have any gas left in the tank. And they just shut up and go, it's not going to happen. It just isn't going to happen. The opposite is going to happen. The more successful Trump is, and, you know, trying to explain the state of derangement, I went back. Let me see if I can find this very quickly. I went back and looked at some polling data and screenshots of some of the drive-by media before the election, like 2-3 weeks before the election. Excuse me here. There's just one piece I'm missing. I had not intended to do this now, which is why I'm having trouble finding. But give me. Well, it'll pop up here when I least expect it to pop up. Anyway, here's one of them. This is a screenshot from October 23rd, 2017. Sorry, it's 2016. It's 1 year ago today. Actually, yesterday. And it is the New York Times presidential forecast. And it says it's got a picture of a smiling Hillary and a kind of a cocky Trump. They're just headshots. Hillary Clinton has a 93% chance to win. Donald Trump at 7%. This is October 23rd, 2016 at 12:30 p.m. Here's the other story. And I was going to do this talking about the Virginia race, the governor's race. The polling on that race is very tight. It started out with Northam way in the lead, and now the Republican Ed Gillespie is inching up, and in fact, in a couple of polls has pulled ahead. But I don't pay any attention to those, and here is why. Now, here's October 23rd, 1 year ago, New York Times, Hillary Clinton, 93% chance to win. This is it's a tweet, is what it is, with a giant blue square at the graphic with Hillary and Trump's faces on there, 93% under her face and 7% under Trump's. And remember, these people bought that. I mean, they really thought it was going to be a landslide. Then there's this, and this is from the August 24th CBS News story, 2016. So this is 2 months before the election. CBS News, another national survey released Tuesday by Reuters found Hillary Clinton with an even bigger lead of 12 points, earning 45% to Trump's 33%. A third survey released, this is my newsreel voice, by the way, the old movie tone newsreel voice, when you saw the news between double features at the movie theater in the 1960s. Am I dating myself or what? A third survey released Wednesday by the Los Angeles Times and the University of Southern California found a tighter race, Clinton at 45 and Trump at 43. Now, numbers are hard to follow on the radio, but stick with me here. So, CBS News in August, Reuters, big 12-point win for crooked Hillary. In North Carolina, according to a Monmouth University survey released Wednesday, Clinton holding on to a narrow 2-point lead over Trump, 44-42. In Ohio, 43-39 Hillary. In Missouri, Trump ahead by 1 point, 44-43. So, the New York Times tweet, 93% chance Hillary wins. The CBS story, a compilation of other polls, essentially showing that Hillary had an insurmountable lead. This poll, the Reuters poll, had Hillary 2 months before the election leading Trump 45-33. In reality, Trump won North Carolina 50-46. In Missouri, they had the race a toss-up, Trump ahead 44-43. It ended up 56-37 Trump in Missouri. In Ohio, they have it, Hillary Clinton up by 5 2 months before the election. Trump wins Ohio 52-43. That's 9 points for those of you in Rio Linda. And Iowa, Trump won it by 9 points, 51-42. That's why I ignore the polling. Look at how bad it was. Look at how, and it was bad. It was universally bad and wrong across the board, but they all believed it. Now, there's this big thought out there that the Republican Party is in the midst of a civil war. That's not correct. The Republican Party is not in the middle of a civil war. 90% of Republicans voted for Donald Trump. 90% of Republicans voted for George W. Bush. 93% voted for Mitt Romney. Where is the disunity? There is some, but the Civil War is not in the party. The Civil War is between the people of the country and the Washington establishment, members of both parties. And that's what's being demonstrated here in the latest Corker-Trump kerfuffle. And it's a repetitive process, and it hasn't changed. Since Trump, actually, you could go back to the campaign if you wanted to for the starting point. You could go back to the election night and the transition, but it's more convenient to start with Inauguration Day. Since then, we've had this process where somebody or a series of somebodies inside Washington, in the establishment, inside the Beltway, has had it with Trump. They're over the top. There's a mind-numbing kerfuffle and an argument and so forth, and it just repeats itself. And every time it happens, and they're saying it now, hey, Trump's gone way overboard with the widow. Oh, my God, did you see that? Trump is really blown it. He's really insensitive. Now he's gone overboard with Corker, but it never changes Trump's support within the Republican Party. None of it ever changes Trump's support in the Republican Party. However, Trump won not with just Republican votes. He needed some Democrats and independents like Reagan did, and he got them. But he didn't get them because he convinced, or I convinced, or anybody else in the media convinced those Democrats to vote against Democrats and vote for Trump. Trump got those Democrats on the basis of his agenda. And on the basis that there are a significant number of Democrats that are fed up with the Washington establishment, too, that you never hear reported and you never hear discussed because the drive-bys are not even able to comprehend the concept that people are upset with Washington. I mean, they know it, but they don't take it seriously. They are Washington, and what the people think doesn't matter to people inside the Beltway. The only time those people matter is on Election Day. and maybe during the campaigns, but in terms of actually ascertaining what those people, the American people, really think and really want, that's not relevant. And so the drive-bys have missed that enough leftists, well, I don't want to call them leftists, enough Democrats, Reagan Democrats, are also fed up with the ruling class, that Trump's agenda appealed to them. And there hasn't been any erosion in this. I don't care. They're trying. They're doing everything they can to split Trump up from the people that voted for him, but it hasn't happened because they can't do it. They had nothing to do with assembling Trump's coalition, and as such, there's nothing they can do to destroy it. Now, they don't know this. That's why they continue to try. But one of the things that's happening, while they repeat this endless cycle, they are distracted so much by trying to destroy Trump that they are not noticing all of the good things or the improving things that Trump is accomplishing. They're not interested. The media has been so distracted resisting Trump that they have let a lot of Trumpism slide by without noticing. The stock market seems to be noticing. It continues to break new records despite the media, despite the resistance, despite the Democrat Party's efforts to talk the economy down. It just keeps roaring along. Trump's policy on immigration continues to be implemented simply by virtue of enforcing the law. Now, all these things are happening while the media is doing their best to destroy Trump, and they're missing it, which, as I say, may not be a bad thing. Anyway, let me take a brief time out. We'll come back and continue with this. There's a point to all this in terms of the cycle that we're living through and what it really means and what the real fight going on in America is really all about. You want to hear a shocking stat? Census Bureau. 45% of California's residents do not speak English at home. 45% do not speak English at home. Would you be surprised to learn that a Mexican woman who cannot speak English, who cannot read English, cannot understand English, just passed her citizenship test? And the story is made out to be a heartwarming, heartstring, tugging. You're supposed to cry. Isn't that wonderful? Oh, my God. Oh, my God, beautiful woman. Ah, what a great country. She doesn't know what she has become a citizen of. She can't read it. She can't speak it. She can't understand English. Somehow she passed the test. Also, news on congressional investigations. Two committees, Devin Nunes and Peter King, live press conference before the program, announced that they will be investigating the Uranium One deal. House Intelligence Committee is the main investigation. They're working on getting the witness with the non-disclosure agreement released from it by justices. This is his FBI witness. And Trey Gowdy has announced he's opening an investigation into the DOJ's exoneration of Hillary Clinton. And the Republicans are trying to move tax reform fast with a luncheon up there between Trump and Corker. So, man, things are moving out there. Jeff Sessions says he's going to find MS-13 and send them to the moon. Now, don't misunderstand. I've got people sending me emails. Actually, I got people sending me emails with lots of questions. What do you mean that downplaying the Corker thing? I'm not downplaying it. The Corker thing, which we're going to get to in due course. I mean, I got all the sound bites here. I'm just getting revved and ready to roll them out. The Corker thing is very, very important. You know why? Strip everything of the substance and content of this out. What does it show? It continues to show everybody that Trump is not going to just sit and let some people trash all over him. He's not going to permit it. He doesn't care who it is. It could be somebody that you would largely think is small fry and irrelevant, or it could be a United States senator. It could be McCain. It could be Corker. He's not going to sit there and take it. And I'll tell you what needs to happen. I have a story somewhere in the stack. I think it's at EPA. Somebody at the EPA, not the secretary or the director, but somebody at the EPA is pushing back against a bunch of leftist dribble. And it's beautiful to see. Trump is indicating a behavior here that a lot of people, my friends, for example, wish this stuff would stop. I just wanted to normalize. No, this is what pushing back looks like. If you elected Trump to fix some of this stuff, if you wanted an outsider to come in, this is what it's going to look like. It isn't going to be pretty. The other side's not going to sit down and take it. They're just not. And so Trump pushing back, I think, continues to offer a recipe, a solution for others. Can you imagine if there were more than just Trump pushing back against these people on the left? It would be a beautiful thing. Now, there's also some substantive matters in the Trump-Corker feud, but we'll get to that in due course. You see what happened at PMSNBC, Snerdley? They took a film crew out to the Great Southwest, and they wanted to do a piece on border security and how it's fine, and Trump's over the top on this. And they went out to do a piece on the prototypes. Trump's got a bunch of prototype walls that are being built. Different colors, different styles, different architectural designs from which the wall will be chosen. And the wall will get built. There's no doubt in my mind the wall will get built. So while MSNBC is out there trashing the whole premise, their cameras catch a bunch of illegals jumping the existing fence. And you can hear this, whoa, what is that? What just happened? And a couple of illegals just jumped the fence out there. The MSNBC got it on tape while they're out. This is kind of like Al Gore showing up for a global warming meeting and it snows a blizzard. Now, James Toback. We talked about this guy yesterday. This is this Hollywood director that is really skating along under the radar. And the news yesterday, over the weekend, was that something like 30 women had come forward and identified Toback as a Harvey Weinstein-type sexual harasser and abuser. And they detailed the guy's technique. Now, the guy is Jabba the Hutt, folks. He's about 72 or 73. He's bad. Diabetes is bad. And that means that Toback can only dream about sexual activity. He can't literally, Viagra wouldn't help. Let's put it this way. Might. You need to take a lot of it. So Toback's out there doing it. Now apparently, Snerdley just told me 200 women. Is that right? You're not exaggerating. 200 women. 200 women now coming forth. Oh, you see what Kathy Griffin did with Lisa Bloom. Kathy, hang on. These screensavers in here, there's got to be a way around this. Anyway, Kathy Griffin, you know who she is. She's sliced and diced. Yeah, she's a comedian. Don't make me laugh. She's not a comedian. She's unhinged. She's a typical liberal. Anyway, she had she had a decapitated Trump head with blood dripping out of it. Well, anyway, Lisa Bloom, Gloria Allred's daughter, was her lawyer, and she has just fired back at Lisa Bloom, calling her a publicity whore, a fame whore, telling everybody that Lisa Bloom gave her the exact wrong advice. All Lisa Bloom wanted was to get on camera herself and use Kathy Griffin to do it. This is feminist on feminist war going on the left. That's happening on this Toback guy. Now 200 women, and they all pretty much telling the same story. He approaches them in Central Park. He approaches them. He had one hit movie back in the early 90s. Is not a household Hollywood name, but he carries his resume with him, and he gives away DVDs of his movies to prove to these women that he's who he says he is. And he drags them back to his apartment, to a hotel room for an audition, where he tells them that in order to be cast for the role he has in mind, they have to get nude. He has to see them nude. Well, they're all coming forward here. So you've got this happening now. It's just infesting Hollywood. Apparently it is the way of doing business in Hollywood. Isn't the hypocrisy of this? These are the people preach to us about women's rights. I was thinking about, I was watching a couple of television shows over the weekend, one of them Chicago PD. This is not to criticize the shows. And there's also another show on HBO called The Deuce, which is about 42nd Street back in the 70s in Manhattan and the birth of the porn industry. And in both of these shows, you know, I'm sorry for noticing this, but I have to make this observation. And I'm not the first to do it by any stretch. But in both The Deuce and in these police procedurals, almost all of the African-American actors are cast as pimps, drug dealers, drug users, murderers, gang members. And it just finally hit me. Here's Hollywood preaching to and the amount of smoking that goes on in movies. And drinking. Now, here's Hollywood preaching to us about the evils of racism and the evils of sexism. And look at the product that they pump out. Now, black actors have to work. For every role that is available in a TV show, there's probably 10,000 actors that want to get it. So they have to take the roles that are offered. But it's stunning to me how many of the roles are cliched and stereotypical of the exact kind of thing the players in the NFL are protesting. That's the stuff that Hollywood pumps out. I think that there is so much internal strife and corruption, and I think they're aware of their hypocrisy. Now we've got this sexual harassment stuff. It's showing up in state capitals. Women representatives and senators in certain states are now starting to detail evidence of men hitting on them. It seems like it's rampant. And it is rampant on the left, where reside those who preach to us the holier-than-thou of racial relations and harmony and anti-sexism and anti-racism. But look at the crap and the drivel they put out. It just struck me. Now, another email. How come you're not talking about the O'Reilly thing? Look, folks, I'm famous enough. I don't need to insert my name in this story in order to be famous. Yeah, the thing about this story that bothers me, other than the sordid details, look at the people. You know, I'm kind of walking a little bit of a narrow plank even pointing this out, but look at the people inserting themselves in this story so they want to be part of it to get their names in the news. To me, this is I don't know. I'll just tell you this. After I read some of this stuff, I realize how boring I must be and how grateful for it I am. Honest to Pete. Let me take a brief time. We'll come back, and if I feel like caring enough, we'll get into the Trump Corker stuff. But there's a Victor Davis Hanson piece today at National Review. No, I'm just being facetious. It's not that I don't care about the Corker stuff. I just want to do it right. But I've got a great piece by Victor Davis Hanson I want to use to tie all of this stuff that I've discussed today, minus the sexual harassment, together. So hang on. We'll be back in just a second. By the way, Sarah Carter, she used to share a byline with John Solomon at Circa News, and I think she's still at Circa News. Solomon has moved on to thehill.com. These two are uncovering things that nobody else in the mainstream media is even approaching. And one of the things both, now under separate bylines, have been digging into is the collusion story involving American uranium, 20% of the stock ending up in Russia via collusion between the Clintons and their foundation, a Canadian broker, and the Obama administration. And they're digging deep. And Sarah Carter last night said there's a FBI witness who wants to talk. He's a confidential informant, and he's under an NDA, a non-disclosure agreement, and the FBI won't let him out of it, which is suspicious. into and unto itself. Now, this all happened when Eric Holder was the Attorney General, which meant that whoever was over the FBI worked for Holder, and this investigation was taking place. And now it looked, and I said yesterday, I think part of the reason for the Mueller investigation is to find out the dangers that reside in this investigation and maybe ignore them or cover them up. Because this is real collusion, and it involves the Clintons and Obama. And the State Department, I said Department of Justice, the State Department, Hillary was Secretary of State, and American uranium supply. And the Clintons were personally enriched along with uranium. They ended up getting a lot of money personally, Clinton making speeches, and the Clinton Crime Family Foundation. So the FBI has this witness that Congress wants to talk to. The FBI will not let him out of the non-disclosure agreement. Sarah Carter said last night that this guy, this confidential informant witness, has tapes, that would be audio, that he has emails and phone calls with evidence that ties the Clintons to this uranium deal, that this guy's got it. And that's why these two new investigations announced today by the House, they want to get to the bottom of this. Now, Hillary's out there saying, like she says about Bill's sexual harassment, well, that's been litigated. That's old news. You can't talk about my husband the same way we're talking about Trump, because that's old news. Everybody knows about that. No. Well, and she's trying to say the same thing about this. Well, the uranium thing, that's old news. That was part of the campaign. Now, Devin Nunes, who is the chairman of the Intelligence Committee, along with Schiff, pencil neck Schiff, the Democrat ranking member. Devin Nunes said that if the FBI does not let this guy out of his NDA, non-disclosure agreement, he's going to subpoena him. They are going to talk to this guy. They're going to get their questions answered. Now, the witness apparently, according to Sarah Carter, wants to testify, but can't. Now, I mentioned yesterday I had a friend send me a note about this when he first learned the crux of what I just passed on. And his question to me was, my gosh, will anything ever happen on this? Should we get excited about this? And I said, it just depends on whether Jeff Sessions wants to pursue it, because this is a DOJ matter. I don't know why. Sessions is making a big deal yesterday about going after the criminal gang MS-13, which, fine and dandy, but it struck me kind of crazy because MS-13 has not been on the front page lately, not been on the radar. They're a bad bunch, don't misunderstand. But there's nothing particularly, nearly as politically relevant or hot potato as this uranium transfer with the Clintons and the Obama administration is. Here's Trump, by the way. Trump had a Minority Enterprise Development Week awards event at the White House, and he made the point here that I just made, that the drive-bys are ignoring all kinds of good news because they're so focused on this repetitive cycle of somebody says something, somebody does something, Trump reacts to it, now let's destroy Trump, that they are ignoring, which may not be a bad deal. The drive-bys not trying to talk down the economy like they did try to talk down the Iraq war. It may ultimately be a good thing. Here's what Trump said.
A recent Department of Labor report showed the fewest jobless claims since 1973. Think of that. 1973. We just had a report. We have the fewest jobless claims. I don't think the press, I tell that because the only way I'll get the word out there is if I say it, because they'll never say it. My administration is deeply committed to empowering minority business owners. We're working to lift government barriers so that you can thrive, prosper, and grow. And speaking of growing, our stock market just hit another record high. It's the highest it's ever been in history by far. We've created about $5.4 trillion only in stock market value. $5.4 trillion. And we're very happy about it. And a lot of jobs.
So that's Trump with a rehash of the economic news that is being ignored. And it's being ignored because the drive-bys are not, they can't do anything to hurt Trump with it. So they're focused on things that they think that they will succeed in destroying Trump with. And they're not going to stop. They're beating their heads against a wall like a woodpecker, but they haven't the slightest idea that it just isn't working because they don't. You know what it all boils down to is we had this yesterday from Lindsey Graham. These people trying to take Trump out still do not know why he won. In their minds, it's a fluke. In their minds, it's Russian collusion, Trump with Russia, or it's some kind of a fluke, or there was cheating, or beyond Russia, or something. They haven't yet. I'm serious. They haven't yet accepted the reality that Hillary literally lost, that she wasn't cheated, that there wasn't any chicanery. She legitimately lost. And because they can't yet accept that, they are nowhere near understanding why Trump won. So they believe that they can take Trump out the way they have taken out previous Republican elected officials. And they're not making any progress, despite how it may appear on TV with the mood, the narrative so-called every day. They're not succeeding in this. Details and much more are coming up. Look at this, folks. Chinese young people are rejecting Chi-Com propaganda. And the government is freaking out. This is exactly how the fall of the Soviet Union began. Young people stopped believing the propaganda put out by the Soviet government once they saw blue jeans and episodes of Dallas. We'll be back. Did you see this? Columbia University. They've got a football team. The football team is a doormat. Every year, the football team is a cupcake. If you are guaranteed, if you're a university and you want to win a game, pay Columbia to put on your schedule. Having Columbia in is like having a Division IIA team come in. And the people at Columbia love that. The faculty and the administration at Columbia University love the fact that the football team's horrible because it shows that Columbia is a member of the academic club of intellectual pursuits and not some jock haven. Well, there's a problem. The Columbia football team keeps winning, and some fans are not happy about it, and it made the New York Times. That's how we know. Quick, what is the mascot of the Columbia football team? Does anybody know? I mean, we got football fans galore here, and it's the Columbia Lions. You know where Columbia is, right? You know which one it is. No. Where all the drug deals go down. Way up there on the Upper West Side. You want, just walk across the street from campus. Whatever you want. Big tower up there. Columbia Journalism. This is where Ahmadinejad went to make his speech. And he said there aren't any homosexuals in Iran. And the students all started laughing. And Ahmadinejad said, oh, do you know some? Can you tell me where they live? Anyway, when the Columbia Lions football team snapped its infamous 44-game losing streak on October 8th, 1988, Michael Rosenthal was among thousands in the stands who stood and cheered, "We won." Anyway, 30 years later, the Screwl is forging its best football season in recent memory. They're 6-0 after their weekend win over Dartmouth. And some people at Columbia are not happy. They are not happy about this. There's a woman here by the name of Jill Levy, a classmate, New Jersey fundraising consultant. When my husband told me Columbia had beaten Penn, I said, that's bad news. When I went to Columbia, we prided ourselves on being anti-football and pro-intellectual. Can't we retain our pride in being anti-athletic intellectual nerds? The story makes the New York Times. They're upset the football team's winning at Columbia. No matter where you look, there are implosions, large and small, happening on the left. Greetings and welcome back, folks. It's great to have you here. Rush Limbaugh at 800-282-2882. The email address, lrushbaugh@eibnet.us. Some headlines: NFL losing viewers at alarming rate, but faces limits on its response. Colin Kaepernick just went out and hired a publisher. Hillary Clinton's publisher just gave Kaepernick a book deal. I have some prospective titles, but I better keep them to myself. Doesn't matter if he's not a right. Ghostwriters and what have you. This is half the thing. Now, if you get a Fox News gig, he will have achieved a career objective of many young conservatives. I'm teasing, folks. I'm just teasing here. In kind of one of these giddy moods today. Yesterday I was in a foul humor. Today I'm not. Nothing changed. Just goes to show you how crazy brain chemistry is. Anyway, NFL losing viewers at an alarming rate. And because, again, they don't know why they're losing viewers. They're so obstinate about this. Obstinate, they don't know why. They are dead wrong assuming why they're losing viewers. They think it's because of other competition for leisure time dollars. They don't stop to think how many leisure time dollars it requires to be an NFL fan these days. Not to mention the anthem controversy and the fact that the players are the ones taking action that's driving people away. I mean, how do you square that? It's the players people show up to watch, not the owners. Speaking of which, Reverend Jackson has weighed in, and I think the Reverend Jackson may need some clinical help. You know, it's been a while since we've heard from the Reverend Jackson. There was something happened yesterday that I said we need the Justice Brothers to weigh in on this. What was the news event? The Hollywood. Yeah. That's what it was. Oh, folks, if you missed this is just. Thank you for reminding me. BuzzFeed News had a serious editorial piece, an op-ed piece yesterday. The fact that Harvey Weinstein wasn't abusing or accosting any African-American actresses shows how racist he is. And how racist that means Hollywood is. So are we to conclude that if Harvey Weinstein had invited some African-American actresses to his suite or elsewhere, that at least we could have said Harvey was not racist in his sexual harassment? I mean, who thinks this way? The left does. That's right. And I said the Justice Brothers need to look into this. That would be perfect for Sharpton and Jackson to look into. Anyway, the Reverend Jackson was on Fox Sports 1 Undisputed. That's Fox Sports' cable network, channel 219, DirecTV. And he bashed Donald Trump for referring to anthem kneelers as SOBs. And then he took aim at the NFL. The NFL's doing everything it can to accommodate these guys. What is he doing aiming at the NFL? And here's how he did it. To go from picking cotton balls to picking footballs and basketballs without freedom is not very much progress. The Reverend Jackson said yesterday, let me check the soundbite. Yeah, we've got this. I knew we had this. It's audio soundbite number 19. Grab it. Here we are. 3, 2, 1.
All free agencies around the world owe their wages and their benefits to Kurt Flood, who paid the price of rebelling against a system of oppression. And in many ways, it is oppressive. To go from picking cotton balls to picking footballs and basketballs without freedom is not very much progress. It's just a lateral move. And when the president says, fire them, And we're talking about sons of bitches. These boys are not sons of bitches. They're sons of mothers who produce champions. They're not sons of bitches.
All right. Now, but what did he just do? You go from picking cotton balls to picking... Who picked cotton balls? Is he confusing that with boll weevils? You know, the Cotton Bowl in Dallas. Well, you see, you go from picking cotton balls to picking footballs and basketballs without freedom is not very much progress. It's just a lateral move. He is attacking 3 different industries under one general umbrella, professional sports, that have made African-American men exceedingly wealthy. And they have so much freedom that they can protest their own country and the national anthem, and their bosses defend them. What is he talking about? What in the name of Sam Hill is he talking about? This is why I'm suggesting there may be a need for clinical help here. You go from picking cotton balls to picking footballs and basketballs. Notice he left out baseballs. How do you pick a football? I mean, you could say it's interception, but, I mean, the interception is called a pick, but that's not what the Reverend Jackson means. When the president says fire them, you talk about sons of... These boys are not sons of... They're sons of mothers who produce champions. They're not sons... But they're just making lateral moves out there. They're picking footballs and they're picking basketballs and they're doing it laterally with no freedom. This is absurd. I share this with you simply to illustrate yet another miniature little implosion on the left. Everything coming out of the left these days, one way or another, is nonsensical. And I really, what in the world he's doing attacking? These sons of champions he's talking about here are exceedingly wealthy. They are wealthy way beyond the national average. And their bosses are allowing them to take action which is hurting the game and still paying them. Lateral move? Anyway, I have missed the Reverend Jackson. I've missed this. He hasn't been around. I don't know where he's been, but he hasn't been around. And for all the issues that would bring him from wherever he'd been hiding, is this one? Anyway, he's on Fox Sports 1. And how interesting might that have been to watch? Okay, now I mentioned Victor Davis Hanson. He's got a piece at National Review today called The Never Trump Construct. Now, this is a long piece, and I actually would love to read it to you word for word, but I'm not going to because it's too long. But it starts, interestingly, with a point that I made in the previous hour. For all the talk of a civil war in the Republican Party over Donald Trump, 90% of Republicans ended up voting for him. And he goes on to make the point that that's the same percentage of Republicans that voted for George W. Bush, about the same percentage that voted for George H.W. Bush. Mitt Romney got 93% of the Republican vote. So where is this civil war in the Republican Party? He's not denying there's a civil war. What he's denying is that it's over Trump. And he's drawing a distinction between voters and people in Washington, voters and the establishment. And as far as voters are concerned, there isn't any civil war going on with Trump. It's not Trump that they're angry at. Donald Trump got about the same percentage of the Republican vote as John McCain in 2008, slightly less than Romney in 2012. So the present civil war did not translate into much in 2016. United or divided, the Republicans have lost the popular vote in 4 out of the last five national elections. And they've lost the popular vote not because large numbers of Republicans voted for Democrats, but because there aren't enough Republicans to begin with. And their candidates were not able to capture enough independents and Democrats or to motivate enough first-time or lapsed Republicans to register and turn out to vote. And they certainly weren't able to flip new demographic groups to conservatism. Trump won no more of the voters who turned out and who identified as conservatives than did Romney. But the key difference, Trump did get Democrats, did get independents. You know, this is a point that I made during the campaign when I was cataloging the supposed rage and anger of the never-Trumpers in the Washington establishment. These Romneys, the McCains, what did they all say that they needed to do? And when Rand Paul ran, he came by my office and he made the point, we can't win with just Republican votes. We got to go get Democrats. We got to go independents. Well, Trump did. Trump should have been heralded by these people. He actually did what they claimed had to be done, which is why they claimed they supported amnesty. The way they decided to do it, the Romneys and McCains, the way they decided to get Democrat votes was to go Democrat light, you know, in favor of amnesty, be in favor of some national health care, but not like Obama's. In other words, the McCain-Romney approach was, tell enough to fool conservatives thinking you were one, while you were really going out trying to appeal to Democrats and so forth. But they didn't appeal to Democrats in the right way. They tried to peel off Democrats by being Democrat light rather than what Trump did to get them. What did Trump do to get these disaffected Democrats, independents, Reagan? What did he do? Make America great again. Trump ran against the administrative state. Romney, McCain, George W. Bush were. Obama, Hillary were the administrative state. Trump gave everybody the blueprint on how to win. The Civil War, and it's not a surprise, remains the never-Trumpers on the Republican side who join the Washington establishment in opposing Trump simply because he's an outsider. Now, the nub of this, you should really read the whole thing, but the nub of this happens near the conclusion. Again, Trump is a symptom of widespread disgust. He's not the head of a carefully crafted ideological movement with a checklist of issues. Now, some of you may disagree with that. Some of you might, no, Trump has an agenda, and he announced it every campaign appearance. And there's 5 or 6 items, bam, 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 bam. Everybody knows what his issues were. What Mr. Hansen is saying here is that he doesn't have an ideological agenda based on ideological principles and so forth. He's got an agenda, but Trump is a symptom of much more. In fact, it makes the point that Trumpism has been alive and percolating long before Trump came along and gave voters an outlet for it. And what it really adds up to is that for 20 years or more, Republicans, conservatives primarily, have been growing angrier and angrier and weary of the Republican establishment, have grown less trustful and less desirous and less supportive. But they had nowhere else to go. They had to vote for the Democrat nominee or the establishment Republican. The first guy that came along who was not establishment Republican, who articulated, validated what all these people, this may be old news to you, but the point of the piece is to try to share with the never-Trumpers, because there's still so many people to this day have no idea why Trump won. There's just a couple more points to this, which I'll get to after the break, and then we'll get to the phones. So hang on. Don't go. Welcome back. El Rushmo, serving humanity simply by being here. We should remember 3 general principles. First, neither side has yet published policy manifestos that transcend Trump or radically contradict the general protocols of past Republican presidents. There is no contract with America that defines Trumpers or never-Trumpers. For now, it's all nebulous and boils down to whether one believes the controversial messenger trumps or does not trump the mostly shared media. His point is that the real difference in Trumpers and never Trumpers is not policy, it's Trump. And he's chiding the never Trumpers, the arrogant establishment types who simply can't, like the Corkers of the world. And saying it's silly. They have an opportunity here to score and score and score, and everybody's all caught up in decorum and stuff. Because this is the bottom line. While all of this argument over decorum and speech patterns takes place, the administrative state expands, the debt is headed for $21 trillion. Crass identity politics tears the nation apart. The effort to restore deterrence abroad grows ever more dangerous, meaning stopping people like North Korea. And the campuses and Hollywood, the NFL, and the media are reminding us that progressive politics are now our culture's orthodoxy, vital for success in nearly all fields. And dealing with all of that is the only conservative fight that counts. Amen. And it's another way of saying that the never-Trumpers who don't see the real problems facing the country remain the problem, not Trump. Victor Davis Hanson, National Review Online today. Quick time out here at the bottom of the busy broadcast hour. Back before you know it. No. I'm still going to get to Trump and Corker. I had to set it up. But now I got to get to the phones because we have to get to the phones. I'm going to start here with Aaron in Pipestone, Minnesota. What a great sounding town. How you doing, Aaron?
Hey, I'm doing well, Rush. Thanks. It's a pleasure. It really is. I'm a Rush baby. Been listening for a long time.
Well, I appreciate that. I really do.
Yeah, say, you were talking earlier about, hypocrisy with celebrities and the stuff they get by with. Yeah, I was just thinking, I heard this morning the NFL had named Justin Timberlake as the performer for the Super Bowl this year. They're going to lecture us on social justice and stuff, and then they, put a guy to the Super Bowl that, 15 years ago, pulled down Janet Jackson's shirt?
Well,
something like that.
You're talking about the famous wardrobe malfunction. That revealed, I think it was the nipple of Janet Jackson, Nipplegate. It's interesting the way people see things. You see this as a little bit of hypocrisy. I think it's white privilege. I mean, of all the entertainers that they could get, what about Snoop Dogg? Snoop Dogg's out there singing the praises of the players. He's rapping. He's ripping the NFL to shreds, which is what I think. If you're going to support the players sitting down or kneeling during the anthem, go get a guy that's celebrating the players, and that'd be Snoop Dogg. If you don't want to go Snoop Dogg, go LL Cool J. If you don't want to go LL Cool J, go get Eminem. But Timberlake, you couldn't get more white bread, milk toast, white privilege than that.
Yeah.
You see it as wardrobe malfunction. You see it as rewarding a guy who engaged. Do you think that was accidental? You sound like you think that was done purposefully.
I don't know. I just heard it this morning. That was kind of what I thought when you were talking about celebrity hypocrisy. It just kind of came to mind. So I don't know how much of it was planned or not. But I think I was in like middle school or something when it happened. So
were you excited by it?
I don't know. I've never really watched the halftime show much, to be honest. I heard about it later. It was all over the news.
Yeah, same with me. I didn't see it live. I heard it, but I go raving about it or talking about it. And when I saw it, it's like everything else. When you don't see it live and then people are raving about it, you think, wow, this must be something. And then you see it, and it isn't that big a deal. What was it, a split second? If it weren't for the still frame shots in the newspapers on the networks, nobody would have, you notice it, but it didn't rise to the level of outrage that I had heard attached to it by the time I saw it. But maybe they're just giving him a second chance. The NFL's a league of second chances and third chances. Do you know this? Let me ask you if you know this, Aaron. Do you know that, and I don't know if it's the case with Timberlake, but up until this year, the NFL halftime performers did it with no compensation.
Really? I did not know that.
The NFL said, you're getting exposed here to a worldwide audience you couldn't buy and you couldn't get on your own. And they cover expenses, but has been no payment. At least. Now, the only reason I know that is because some of the performers went public with it as an insult and turned it down. Largely, when people turn down a Super Bowl halftime invitation, it's because there isn't any compensation for it. Now, I think I just don't want to be seen as slaves. Cotton, football pickers, as denoted by the Reverend Jackson. You look like you don't think I'm right about this. I know. Well, many have turned it down for a host of reasons, but I think the majority of the ones that have turned it down is because I don't know if this has changed. This may be 2 or 3 year old information, but I do know that many, I can't say it's universal, but I do know a bunch of people that have been offered the gig have said they wanted me to do this for nothing. They told me that they're giving me the biggest audience I've ever had and that I ought to be grateful. And that's when I figured they don't pay these people anything other than the expenses and so forth. Yeah, I know. Billion people worldwide watching your performance. But to some people, it's a principle. Once you give it away, how do you tell the next people no? And that would be easy. Well, you're not giving me an audience of 1 billion people. Anyway, Aaron, I appreciate the call. Moving next to Lynchburg, Virginia. Nathan, you're next, sir. How are you?
Good. How you doing, Rush?
Pretty good. Thank you,
sir.
Thank you. You bet.
Hey, I wanted to ask you. Now, I voted for Corey Stewart over Ed Gillespie in this primary for the governorship, and my man lost. What do I do as a voter when Northam and Ed Gillespie are part of the same team against the people? How is it that I can?
You mean they're both establishment types?
Both establishment and have been proven establishment. What do I do as a voter at that point? Do I just, like the NFL players, take a knee and not vote?
That's an interesting question.
Protest?
Well, you know what? Virginia is it's outside the Beltway, but for all intents and purposes, Virginia is the establishment. That's the problem. You get to the northern Virginia suburbs, and you may as well be talking about D.C., and so you are kind of stuck because it's likely that whatever party tosses candidates up there, they are going to be established. They're going to be wired. They're going to be connected to K Street or the parties like Gillespie. Gillespie worked in the Bush White House. He's worked at the RNC. I mean, he's a good guy. I've met Gillespie. I know him, but he is what you say. I mean, he's right out of the Republican establishment. As to what you should do, man, that's a great question, because it's not good civics to tell you not to vote. I think you have to. This isn't going to satisfy you. You just have to make the assessment. You go in knowing that you do not have an optimal choice, so you have to pick the lesser of your choices. Pick the lesser of the two evils is the old standby phrase, and then hope you end up being surprised.
But don't you think that those days are over with, where we have to pick? We're forced to pick the lesser of two evils.
They're not.
Trump came in and changed everything.
What option do you have? If somebody doesn't mount a write-in campaign, there's not going to be a serious opportunity for somebody else to win. So, what option do you really have?
And by the way, Rush, it's Charlottesville North is all D.C. establishment territory. I live down in Lynchburg, and we down here in Southern Virginia, we actually vote right and we live right. and we want nothing to do with Charlottesville North.
Well, I understand Charlottesville, University of Virginia. I didn't mean exclusively the northern Virginia suburbs, but I'm just saying when you get up there, you're not even really in Virginia. You are geographically, but you may as well be surrounded by people that work, live, breathe, and derive their actual essence from the Washington, D.C. Treasury.
Yeah.
And once they do that, there's nothing you can do.
Well, thank you, Rush.
Well, I feel bad. I feel, why? I don't have an answer for the guy. Lesser of two evils, but I mean, I know, and I am the mayor of Realville, and he lives where he lives. And it's, I could flippantly say move, but I wouldn't say that. So, but I understand the frustration, especially now when there is a wave happening out there of anti-establishmentism, and you want to play. You want to participate in it, and the two choices you have in Virginia don't give you the chance. So I totally get the frustration. Let me take another brief time out. I don't know where the time goes, folks. It literally is the fastest 3 hours of the day here. They roll by, incredibly tough to keep up with it all, but we will. Sticking with the phones before we get back to the stack of stuff here, and there's some great stuff in the stack of stuff. This is Kevin in Columbus, Ohio. Great to have you, sir. How are you?
Hey, Rush. Hey, isn't Corker of Tennessee chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee?
Yeah.
Okay, well, if so, then how does he still have that chairmanship? He has done nothing but treat our president with total disrespect. And if McConnell doesn't remove him, then isn't McConnell tacitly supporting him?
I don't know.
And if that's the case, you know what the president should do? We should all focus on this May coming up, and the president should come out with his list of Republicans that need primaried, that need removed, because they have been nothing but an obstruction to him, and he has still accomplished many things, even with the obstructionism from his own party going on. It's just to the point where it's absolutely ridiculous, and for McCorkle to be able to speak the way he has publicly about our president and still hold that chairmanship just totally blows my mind.
Well, look, I don't know what Senate rules are in this instance here. Corker has announced that he's not seeking re-election, that he's retired, but he's still there. I don't know that would automatically provide instant grounds for McConnell removing him. I think McConnell likes him. I think Corker is, especially with this kerfuffle with Trump, there's some people in the Senate that are invested in Corker on this. Corker is doing the bidding of a lot of people in the Senate, but the Senate runs itself. Trump can't. I mean, he could call McConnell and they could say, I think it'd be really great if you get rid of the guy. The guy's a pain in the rear. But it's a strictly McConnell's call. And what the seniority system is and all these rules, I don't pretend to know what would be involved. Your overall point that Trump ought to be providing leadership on which Republican senators up for re-election need to go. That's, in the real world, that's a job for surrogates to do. The fact remains that, and it's something to shoot for. The fact remains that if there would just be, I'm sounding like a broken record on this, and I know you're going to think it's sophistry given the actions of Corker lately, but the fact remains that if there could be, just for 3 months, even just the appearance of a unified front between Republicans in both the House and the Senate and Trump on the agenda, and really take action to move it forward. This is the point of Victor Davis Hanson's column today. He said when you get right down to it, the policy differences between Trump and Republicans on Capitol Hill are not that great. And he makes the point that for all the talk of congressional Republicans opposing Trump, the fact is that 90% of them have voted with Trump on one or several other pieces of legislation that have come up. Now, not saying there isn't opposition to Trump. What the point is that the opposition to Trump is infantile, it's immature, and it's childish because the left is doing what it's doing. The left is continuing, the national debt is being added to the spending, and that's partly the Republicans' responsibility as well. But you look at what's happening with the NFL, and if you look at what's happening on college campuses, if you look at what's happening in Hollywood, the left is on the march in the culture. And as Mr. Hansen points out, there's an orthodoxy that you have to subscribe to. You have to behave in these areas the left runs. You have to behave according to their demands or you're out. And as such, it is a powerful cultural influence. And the administrative state is still expanding while all of these kerfuffles are going on. And ultimately, what needs to happen is the Republicans need to unify around the same thing that we've been dying for them to unify around. Stop the left. I'm sorry to scream or yell, but I get worked up about this because that is the objective. But to too many people, and it doesn't take many, the objective is stop Trump. And it's childish, and it's based on things that are not real. If you read Victor Davis Hansen's entire column, you find out that most of the differences between never-Trumpers and Trump is not policy. It's Trump. It's his manner of speaking. It's his personality. It's his decorum. It is that he embarrasses people in his party. And it embarrasses them because they want to be respected by our opposition, by our enemy. It's the same old lament. There's nothing new in it, but it is childish. There is an agenda out there that needs to happen to restore the country's greatness and to defeat the left. And it's this insider versus outsider thing is a childish thing that's stopping it. Pure opposition to Trump based on things that are not related to policy. It's not as though Trump is doing things the Republican Party doesn't support. He's doing everything they do support, or say they do. Repeal, replace Obamacare, cut taxes, fix immigration, regrow the economy. Everything Trump's doing is exactly what the Republican Party has said for years that they believe in. And yet there's a number of them that can't bring themselves, both in the media and in academia, the think tanks, and in Congress, that just can't. They can't find themselves to agree with Trump because Trump repulses them personally or what have you. It's small-minded, it's small-sighted, and it's actually kind of selfish when you consider the stakes involved, meaning the future of the country and what kind of country we're going to be and a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity we have here. I don't know about you, but I never thought we'd have full control of the House, the Senate, and the White House at the same time. I never thought this opportunity would present itself. I hoped, don't misunderstand, but I never thought it actually. Now it has, and it's being squandered. It's being squandered, and not because Republicans disagree. Now, I realize a lot of Republicans say things on the campaign trail that they don't mean. And McCain is out there. Well, I got to take a break. McCain is supporting some newfangled cockamamie thing called truthfulness in ads from the guy who lied to the American people about his immigration policy just to get elected and then abandoned it after he gets sworn in again. You know, this Corker eruption today, it happens on, he's a goner, it happens on a day that Trump is scheduled to go have a lunch to push tax cuts. What are the odds this is not coincidental? That it just didn't happen? Well, it's a possibility. We have to consider it, which we will and have. We get back. Have my brain tied behind my back just to make it fair. Rush Limbaugh meeting and surpassing all audience expectations on a daily and, dare I say, an hourly basis. We're here at the Excellence in Broadcasting Network, fastest 3 hours in media. It's great to have you here. The telephone number, 800-282-2882. Trump and Republican senators have just come out of their big tax luncheon where they were having a confab on tax reform, and Trump is now addressing the media afterwards. We're rolling on it. Anything of import and newsworthiness we will have for you before the hour ends. And yes, we'll review the Corker stuff for the entertainment value. Although it's look, I say the entertainment value of it. I look at this as just, as I said at the beginning of the program, just part of an ongoing pattern. It's the same thing. Every day there's something like this that happens that the media focus on, and it's usually something that pops up to show mainstream people just can't stand Donald Trump. Donald Trump is a reprobate. Donald Trump is a bull in a china shop. Donald Trump doesn't deserve to be in the White House. Donald Trump is unfit for office. It's an ongoing pattern. It happens each and every day. And the people who want to get in the news, like Corker or others, level the charge, or some sequined cowboy hat-wearing Democrat congresswoman in Florida. And I kind of just hate falling prey to it and getting sucked into it, which is why I wait until the latter hours of the program to get into this stuff. Meanwhile, there are other things piquing my interest out there. But before I get to them specifically, this is an interesting review. If you look at the Drudge Report today and look at the headlines, and if you know how to do this, if you instead of seeing each headline individually and assessing it individually, what it means, if you're able to see the pattern there, as of course I am able to, then a certain picture presents itself. And I have 1, 2, 3, 4 headlines. We even have some audio sound bites to support one of these. In fact, Mike, find the Don Lemon sound bite. I think it's number 6, if my memory serves. Yeah, have number 6 standing by. Now, the National Football League is slowly sliding off of its pedestal. Yet another story today about massive audience loss. Television audience, sum total during the season. It's worse in certain markets for certain games, certain teams. The overall trend is bad. The NFL doesn't have the slightest idea how to fix this, for a host of reasons. I mean, it's a leftist organization that's abundantly clear. I'm not talking about the individual owners. I'm talking about the corporate headquarters, and the thinking there is obvious leftist, and they don't know. They literally don't know how to deal with their problem, because I don't think they have any idea what that problem really is, just based on the way they're addressing it. So you have that. You have Bob Corker melting down today from the pressure of dealing with Trump, and that's how I see this. I see Corker as representative almost of the media, in the sense that he simply can't abide this guy. Now, ostensibly he was an early on supporter, but now he says, I would never support Trump again. I can't believe I ever supported him. This is hard. This is embarrassing. This is bad. Just like the media. They're just, people are beside themselves. They've thought, you have to put yourself in their shoes to understand the frustration. First, go back to what I said, what they all believed on election night, a month before the election, 2 months before, 6 months before, 1 year before. They thought Trump was going to lose in a landslide. They thought Hillary was going to win this thing so big that it wouldn't even be a contest. And even if Trump, before Trump got the nomination, I mean, if it was going to be Ted Cruz, they didn't want to win with Cruz as the nominee. They wanted Jeb. And Jeb never was in it. And so the establishment was never really into the contest. The Republicans on Capitol Hill were planning on losing. They were structuring themselves to be the opposition, the minority opposition they expected to lose. On the left, they believed every stinking poll that showed them and big data analysis that told them Hillary had a 93% chance of winning 95. So we know what happened. They have thrown everything they have at Trump. And when you get right down to it, they haven't made a dent, as they define it. Now, they have retarded the advance of the agenda, and that's a big dent. But they're no closer to getting rid of Trump than they've ever been, and that remains their focus. They've thrown everything. Everything that has ever worked in getting rid of an elected Republican, they have thrown at Trump. That's been the most intense destruct and destroy attempt I have seen in my lifetime that has been aimed and focused on one person. I mean, it outdoes anything they did to Nixon. And Trump lives. Trump breathes. Trump is not unhinged. He's walking around smiling, and he's fighting back on every one of these assaults. They are beside themselves with frustration. Nothing they are doing is accomplishing what they want. Stopping the agenda that's way down on their priority list. Getting rid of Trump. And not just getting rid of him, humiliating him. Humiliating everybody that voted for him. Humiliating everybody in his cabinet. It's a total effort at total destruction, and it's failing big time. Meanwhile, what's happening on their side? The NFL sliding slowly off the cliff. Corker melting down from the pressure of dealing with Trump, and that personifies a whole bunch of people melting down. Don Lemon is melting down every night on CNN. Members of the drive-by media have been melting down for a year. Now, all of a sudden, a couple or three House committees have decided to investigate the Clinton uranium deal, which will include Obama. That's not good. The stock market is soaring. Unemployment is down. Illegal aliens getting into the country, fewer. All of the outward signs, the visible signs of economic progress are there and occurring each and every day without a single Democrat being in power. Do you know that even the number of people on food stamps is down? A significant drop in the number of people on food stamps. The news is good, is the point. The news is good. That's why you're not seeing it. That's why you're not seeing. The media is not even paying attention to the economic news. They're not even trying to talk you out of a good economy like they normally do during a Republican presidency because they're too busy trying to literally take Trump out. Now, watch these four stories. Democrats calling psychologists to talk about Trump's mental health. And here's the story. It's at BuzzFeed. Some Democrats are reaching out to renegade mental health experts, some of whom are getting into political organizing and campaign fundraising with the aim of removing Trump from office. Democrats are actually seeking psychologists who have never seen Trump, never analyzed, never diagnosed, never nothing, to comment publicly on Trump's unfitness for office. They think that this is going to work. All it's going to do is satisfy the already insane and unhinged members voting for them already. This is not the kind of thing that builds and grows and transcends across party lines. CNN, Don Lemon weeps on the air. Activists are going to scream at the sky on Election Day. Democrats and progressives who lost the election still working through their frustration on the 1-year anniversary of the election are going to go outside and look at the sky and start screaming bloody murder. And Mr. Snerdley, have you heard about this? Stevie Wonder. Heard about this? Performed the national anthem on his knees. I haven't clicked on the headline, so I don't know where, and I don't know what the occasion. But this is a crack-up. We are watching, we are witnessing a liberal crack-up. Don't misunderstand. We still have liberal orthodoxy, progressive orthodoxy as the defining element of American culture. Now look at this. The number of times that I've brought this up, and I have people sending me emails, you're crazy. You're focusing on one or two little isolated incidents. You're trying to make this thing bigger than it is, and there's nothing going on. You need to be honest with people. Every time I say that there is a coordinated attack on male masculinity, I have people telling me to get serious and get real, that I'm overreacting. I never overreact. I'm on the cutting edge. I see things when they begin before they get to the size they're going to be. And I warn everybody about it. This is called being on the cutting edge. Societal evolution. Here's the headline, and it's from a website called The Cut. Men taking classes to unlearn toxic masculinity. For some time, Stephen Hicks had felt like something was off. Yeah, he said my relationship ended, and then a lot of things started collapsing in front of me. He began attending therapy, which made him realize he needed to make a bigger change. I wasn't doing really terrible things, but I also wasn't being the most ideal Stephen I could be. The bar is really lowered for cisgender guys. Do you know what cisgender means yet? You ever heard of cisgender? Well, there's transgender. And there's postgender. Cisgender, CIS, means you are how you were born. So if you were born a guy, you're a cisgender male. If you were born a female but became a guy with an addictomy, you have become a transgender male. So the butchering of the language continues. It's okay, you're born a guy. No, you're cisgender. You might become transgender sometime. You're CIS gender. And this guy says the bar is really lowered for cisgender guys, meaning we don't have much room to play around before people get mad at us. So earlier this year, Stephen Hicks signed up for the pilot Rethink Masculinity class, a partnership between the Washington, D.C. Rape Crisis Center, the Collective Action for Safe Spaces, and Rethink, an organization that works to prevent sexual assault. The program bills itself as a class where men, quote, learn how social constructs of masculinity harm them and the people around them, and work to construct healthier masculinities, or as Stephen Hicks puts it, it was 8 weeks of guys discussing how they can address their actions with better self-awareness and less toxicity. In other words, these guys are willfully signing up to be talked out of being men. We spoke of emotional labor, consent, violence, communication, empathy, and vulnerability, Hicks added, noting that the last subject, vulnerability, was a particular struggle for him. I was trained and conditioned to be tough growing up. What these guys are learning is that toxic masculinity prevents you from being vulnerable, and you had better fix it. And the way you fix it is to show your vulnerability. How do you do that? I'm just asking you a question. If somebody said to you that you could improve yourself by sharing or displaying or expressing your vulnerability, how would you do it? What would you do? Do you know, Mr. Snerdley? What would you do? Well, no. This is far more than crying. This is far more than crying. To express, to display your vulnerability, and this is with women, by the way, but not just women. But it means that when you are talking to a woman, you need to immediately share your weaknesses and your fears and your self-doubts. And this will attract her to you theoretically like nothing ever could. If you run around and you tell her that you've been hurt and how it's preventing you from opening up because you don't like being vulnerable, so you mask it with a tough guy I don't care about, and she'll run for the hills. But if you tell her that you are the product of so much hurt and so much pain, and you're open to it now, and you are aware of it, and you're not afraid of it because you're meant to suffer. That's what vulnerability is. The theory is that women will swarm you. And in this, you release your toxic masculinity. Now, I have a clue for you guys that are talked into doing this. Don't do it. Do not do it. The exact opposite of what you're being told is what is going to happen to you. Women are going to run for the hills. There is this belief that women love hurt, damaged, troubled, and vulnerable men because they need to shield them and protect them and take care of them. It's not. If you're paying a woman to be with you, then it's okay to do that because she's going to stay where she is when you leave. But outside of that, hey, look, there's a lot more to this toxic masculinity class. Vulnerability is just a little bit of it. You want to hear more? All right, cool. But we will. In the meantime, back to the phones. Atlantic City, New Jersey. This is Lena. Great to have you.
Hey, can you hear me, Rush?
Yeah, hear you great.
Oh, my. Hey. So this is Elena Turner.
It's Elena Turner, everybody. Welcome to Elena Turner, right? The Elena Turner.
Yes, the one and only.
Right on,
yes.
Right on.
So I wanted to call you and refer back to Janet Jackson and Justin Timberlake, right? And I wanted to explain to you a little bit why some people might be freaking out about it. So when I was little, I was born in 93, so that should explain some. I was actually watching the Super Bowl in church. So they had
wait. Well, hold it. You in the actual sanctuary?
Yeah, so it's like a modern day church.
It wasn't in the fellowship. It wasn't in the fellowship hall. It was actually modern day. Okay, and then
Yeah.
Okay, so then the wardrobe malfunction happened while you're watching it in church. That could not have been good.
Yeah, so it was a pretty chill setup. Like, so we had tables out, we had food, we had chips. Like, everybody's got their hats on, their jerseys. We're having a good time. We're watching, the. Time, all of a sudden, Janet Jackson, her boob comes out. It wasn't her nipple. I don't know how that got construed. It was her whole boob. And we're sitting there, and the shock is just like nobody knew what to do. And it was just
are you opposed to Justin Timberlake being invited back now? Is that the...
No. I just wanted to tell you that, why some people were kind of freaking out about it.
Okay. All right. I appreciate that. I didn't mean to be flippant about this. That some people would. I can imagine if you're watching the game in church, and that happened. It's frightening. Hi. How are you? We're back. The distinguished and the prestigious Limbaugh Institute. Audio soundbite number 6, Don Lemon. This is another one of my examples of the liberal crack-up. And look, don't misunderstand. It is happening. These people are going nuts. I'm not saying that they're losing. They're on the way. They're ripe. And I'm going to keep giving you examples of it each and every day. There's no need. There's no sense in not taking advantage of this. This was last night on CNN. Don Lemon read an open letter that he wrote to Trump about his phone call to the widow of Sergeant LaDavid Johnson.
Your tweet this morning essentially called her a liar. Mr. Trump, please stop it. Please stop. Think of what Sergeant Johnson would want. If Maisha Johnson is mad at you, take it, just as President Bush and others did. Mrs. Johnson, since the president seems incapable of finding the right words, let me speak for the entire country. As a black man, I'm always looking for role models who look like me. And the latest one I found was your husband, LaDavid. May he rest in peace. And may you find peace when you can finally get a good night's sleep, knowing that this is America. We got your back. Believe that. Signed, me, Don Lemon. Sorry. I'm sorry.
He began crying there on CNN. He felt the need to apologize to the widow on behalf of President Trump, who, of course, is an ogre and a barbarian and is incapable of empathy or sensitivity. But did you notice what Don Lemon said here? What's the one thing he said here, Mr. Sturdley, that you picked up on? If Maisha Johnson is mad at you, just take it, as President Bush did. Just take it, as President Bush and others did. Just take it. Bingo. When we're mad at you, President, just take it. That's what your role is. We get to destroy you every day, and you're supposed to take it, President Trump. Just take it. Never mind that the whole thing might have been a setup. Never mind that the way Trump is characterized in this is erroneous. No. You lie about him, Don? He's supposed to take it. You join in an effort to destroy the man, and he's supposed to take it. And thereby we learn the rule of the drive-by media and the Washington establishment. You are to take it. You are not to respond, and you certainly aren't to fight back. You are to take it. If a citizen gets mad at you, even if it's because we've lied to the citizens about you, you should just take it, Mr. President. And then the presumptuousness of Don Lemon with an audience of maybe 100,000 people claiming the mantle and responsibility of speaking for America. Oh, this is who they are. I wonder when did he graduate from unlearning toxic masculinity class? Oh, no, there's lots more toxic masculinity to go here. That's just the vulnerability, just one thing. But I'm running out of busy broadcast moments here. There's a story in The Week. Headline, Trump voters are not animals to be studied by elitists on safari. This story comes as a result of the drive-bys sending reporters out to America to witness Trump voters in the wild. The drive-bys don't know who they are. Folks, the Washington establishment, do not doubt me on this. They still can't fathom this. So they are sending reporters out to study Trump voters in the wild. And a guy named Matthew Walter resents it. My home in rural Michigan is apparently somewhere in the northeastern quadrant of a vast rectangular expanse called Trump's America, a one-of-a-kind admission-free zoo teeming with strange, untamed beasts, exotic flora, and a handful of mostly thankless wardens. Since last November, we've had any number of scientifically minded visitors. The Atlantic recently reported on the safari efforts of 5 researchers from Third Way, the centrist liberal think tank responsible for Hillary Clinton's 2016 campaign platform. Before that, there was Mark Zuckerberg, who this summer reminded himself there are such things as non-driverless cars, while looking at bratwursts as if they were glowing polyps surgically removed from the corpse of the titular monster in The Thing. HuffPo even sent a busload of experts to visit 23 of our cities. It's not clear to me what these people hope to find. Why President Trump won the election? The antidote to fake news? The secret to political success? The first thing anyone who talks to Americans who are not part of the bicoastal political allegiance industrial complex, the first thing they find is that neither of our major parties, in theory or in practice, is representative of most people's views or aspirations. Trump's America contains multitudes. Therein lies the interesting aspect of this. This guy is a witness to the media safaris. They've actually sent reporters out to try to, who are these people? And they are finding out that these people don't have anything in common with the media on the east or left coasts. And they don't know how to deal with it. It's literally foreign to them. Remember, folks, I've pointed out numerous times, the media does a story. My favorite example is the Religious Freedom Restoration Act in Indiana. They portray everything that outrages them as if the whole nation is outraged. They have this arrogance about them that whatever they think is representative of the majority of the country. And they're learning that may not be because Trump won and they can't make people who voted for Trump hate Trump. It's not working. So they've ventured out and said, who the hell are these people? It's like it's a zoo. And they're finding out. I mean, they think there's a few people that don't like the media, but it's not a majority. And they're finding out there are multitudes of people, and they're having trouble dealing with it. But it's never going to get to the point where they will think they have to modify. It'll never get to the point where they think they're missing the boat or doing something wrong. This disconnect between people who live and breathe and work in Washington and the population centers of the left coast and the rest of the country this disconnect is bigger and the gap is wider than it's ever been. And to me, that represents even more of an opportunity. Thank you so much for being with us today, folks. We are sadly out of time, but tomorrow I'm going to finish the course details and requirements for eliminating toxic masculinity. I mean, there's much more to it than just convincing men to be open about their vulnerabilities and their fears. I mean, there's a heck of a lot more to it. And other things, there's a few other I didn't have a chance to get to, plus details of whatever happened at that tax luncheon today. That and much more. We're on top of it, whatever it is. I mean, if that's where you have to be, we will be. Not very often underneath in it.